What's up, guys? I hope you're all doing well. Today I'm bringing you back yet another Q&A. So if you got any questions, post them down below and let's begin. Have you ever thought about doing an internship with someone like Matt Wenning, i.e. moving there for a couple of weeks and learn how to train there? I feel like you guys vibe similarly, putting a lot of emphasis on longevity, etc. And it might be an awesome way of learning from one of the greats firsthand. While I 100% agree with your assessment, Matt Wenning has one of the best channels you'll find on general strength training, and he will teach you everything you need to know about the conjugate system, acquiring elite strength while not getting snapped up in the process. So that's definitely someone that I look up to, and I'm a big fan of his work. That said, would I consider moving there temporarily or doing an internship? Probably not. As much as I respect the man, as well as many others in this field, I feel like I can get the information I need from watching their videos, interviewing them, which allows me to give content to you guys as well. This way we're all benefiting. And of course, reading and buying their programs. I am not opposed to that whatsoever. So when I see someone I vibe with, I will consume all of their content. And if that comes at a premium, hey, I view it as an investment for my knowledge. I'm probably saving thousands of dollars down the road, especially if it allows me to stay injury-free and give you guys better content too. It's a circle that benefits everybody. So I don't mind sacrificing a little bit for the greater good. And again, to me, I don't view it as a sacrifice. It supports the creators who deserve it, me, and the people who watch my content, since I can bring back some of that information to you in an Alpha Destiny type of way, provide my perspective. All right, doing something like an internship would be awesome, but I don't feel I need to go that far to get the knowledge I'm seeking. Most of it is available online by these same individuals. Hello, Alex. Do you recommend applying progressive overload in every session or only on a weekly base? Should I apply it on every exercise? And if adding reps, should I add reps starting from the first set or the last set? Thanks in advance. Love your content. Well, thank you for your support. You should apply progressive overload when possible. Don't force it to the extent that form breakdown occurs, because technically you can muster up a few more repetitions with rest pause, a completely different strategy, or distorting the exercise completely. So if you normally did 3 sets of 6 to 10 setup and you got 10, 9, 8, and then next workout, you try to get 10, 10, 10, but your last 2 sets, you were doing extra reps that were completely bouncy off your chest on, say, the bench press, I don't view that as progressive overload. Progression should come as a result of you getting more proficient with the exercises, proper recovery taking place, and just happening automatically. You go in the gym and one day you're able to put up certain numbers. Now, if you're a novice lifter, you might have to force that mentality temporarily, since some individuals struggle with that. They're actually capable of more, but they stop far too soon. But for most people who are past that stage, or you kind of know how your body is, you don't have to force anything. It's just going to happen as a result of using a proper strength training program. So what I will say to that is, when you're able to increase the weight, do it. Why wouldn't you? Don't run maintenance reps if you know for an absolute fact that you're capable of more. I don't want you dropping your reps in reserve from 2 all the way to 5 before you start to add reps. What I want you to do is add weight whenever it's possible. And if that means every session, go ahead and do that. If that means you can take your bench press from 135 to 405, as in every single workout leading up to that point, which might be a 10-year journey. If you can accomplish that by progressively overloading every single workout, which I doubt, but let's assume that's possible, do it. You progress when your body tells you it's possible. That's all you gotta know. So the frequency element surrounding that is irrelevant. Some programs facilitate slightly faster progression, but you can't force what your body won't produce. At the end of the day, you either got the reps or you don't. Now, should you apply progressive overload for every exercise? Yes. Don't stagnate when you know you're capable of more. That's the main message of my answer to this question. That means your dumbbell curl should be going up, your face pulls, heck, even your band push downs. If you're standing up, doing reps of 25, gradually lower yourself such that you're on your knees or sitting on the ground. Or you can choke the band a little bit wider, add more bands. Progress whenever you can, every exercise. And if you can't make more progress on that movement for whatever reason, perhaps it has a low loading capacity, then you want to rotate the variation, simple as that. So if you're doing weighted planks with 5 plates and 6 feels a little bit awkward, or it's hard for you to get that next plate on you, even if someone puts it, drop weighted planks. Do something like a standing cable crunch. Try to max out the stack. Always look for new opportunities. This is especially true for accessory lifts. So many guys are lazy with the final exercises of their workout, which is why it's costing them gains in the strength and muscle department. And for your last point, should you add reps starting from the first set or last? Dude, I think you're overcomplicating this. If an exercise calls for 3 sets of 6 to 10 and you got 8, 7, 6, try to shoot for 9 on your next workout for the first set. And if that means that you don't, for example, you got 8, 7, 6 the first time, the second workout, you end up getting 8, 7, 7, then the workout after that, 8, 8, 8, that's fine. Ideally, your first set should go up first, but if everything after that point is still increasing, but your first isn't, that's still progression. Any rep PR that you get is still a PR. I find my OHP sticking point is at my forehead. What muscular weaknesses does this expose? And other than pin pressing, standing in Z, what can I do to overcome this sticking point? Great content, keep it up. Thank you, brother. It's kind of normal to be stuck in that position given the strength curve of the exercise. It's difficult from the bottom. Therefore, you exert most of your force starting from that position, similar to a deadlift. And as you get closer to the top, bar speed is slowing down, and all of a sudden you got a lockout issue. So the best thing you can do is get more explosive out of the bottom. That's really how you're going to correct most of these upper issues. But let's assume you don't have that problem. You're super explosive off the bottom, whether doing a high or low percentage. But whenever you get to that forehead, it always gets tricky. Then maybe triceps are a weak link. I know for me, it doesn't matter how fast I am off the bottom. The moment I explode and my elbow is like this close to the lockout, I find it extremely challenging. And that has everything to do with my hypermobility and lagging triceps comparatively. So what has been effective for me, besides what you just mentioned, since those things absolutely help? Standard rep work with bands and chains. Even maxing out, by the way. That'll teach you how to find your groove as you get the weight to your forehead. Sometimes it's a form issue that maxing out can correct, or just not knowing how to grind through that position. And in the case of bands and chains, you're going to overload that part of the movement where you typically fail. It's going to force you to propel with all your might. So keep doing what you're doing. But let's say by your third press, instead of doing, say, a shoulder press with dumbbells, do the OHP with 30, 60 pounds of chains. Classic 3 sets of 6 to 10. Induce progressive overload. See what happens when you start getting stronger with that movement. I believe it's going to help a lot with the sticking point. Should your cable row be stronger than your barbell row or vice versa? I don't think it matters that much, especially since a lot of cables vary so much in terms of what the numbers say. One gym, you could be doing 300 pounds, the other one 150, and it feels like doing 225 barbell rows. So for that reason, who cares? Like, honestly, does it really matter what your cable row to barbell row ratio is? If you're getting stronger at both and using both as a part of a holistic system, everything's good to go. Though I will say that if your cable row is significantly stronger because your posterior chain is lagging, then that tells you there's some muscular weaknesses that need to be addressed. What do you feel more and what don't you feel as much? Those are the questions to ask. But to me, like, I mainly do barbell rows on my 2 upper body workouts, and then I'll do high frequency cable, band, or inverter rows on the side. So I don't really care what the numbers are. But as a general rule, I would say that your barbell row will likely be higher, particularly if you have one cable, which is quite common in home gyms. Like, I don't think I could do more with this setup right here compared to free weights. Hey Alex, when you change the exercise in the max effort method, are all the exercise variations of the same exercise, or can you change the whole exercise as long as it's still a push, for example? In terms of the results you get from max effort training, which is learning how to strain, the intramuscular coordination, all the things that are described in science and practice of strength training, I wouldn't say it matters too much what you're swapping out if it's still a press. But if we're talking about specificity of training, then it absolutely matters. So if you're trying to improve your bench press 1 or max, week 1, you do a flat bench. Week 2, a completely different movement, like a weighted dip. I would say the carryover is high enough that you'll still get a pretty good training effect. So I wouldn't stress about that aspect. But if on week 3, you do something like a 1 arm max Z press or even a 1 arm dumbbell overhead press, yeah, you're still straining to the max. The velocity, bar speed, everything is slowed down. But is that going to have the same degree of transference? Probably not. Compared to doing something like a bench press with chains, yes, you're modifying the strength curve, but it's still the same movement pattern. And the correct muscles are being loaded in the right joint angles. So that's what I would look out for. But if you're just trying to get stronger overall, I wouldn't really stress about that. And again, how many variations do you have to rotate through? If you're lacking equipment, you might have no choice but to do this. But again, for some people, that might be a good thing. Or what if it's going from a horizontal press to a vertical press? You're still using the max effort method, but would you be better off doing more horizontal work, even if it's not the bench press? I think so. That's where we draw the line. But in terms of overcoming the law of accommodation and getting stronger at singles, or just learning the groove of maxing on presses, it doesn't matter if it's an incline, decline, overhead, dumbbell movement, you're still learning how to max. And overall, that's beneficial by itself. Yo, Alex, what do you think about 3 sets of 3 dips and pull-ups when training for strength and explosive power with minimal mass gain? Mass gain will occur as you get stronger with the 3x3 over time. The volume is definitely lacking. No one's going to deny that. But let's say you're doing 3 sets of 3 with 40 pounds. And over the next 2 years, you get to 135 for 3 sets of 3. You mean to tell me your lats aren't going to grow? It's not happening. So even if we approach it from this minimalist perspective, which I highly recommend you don't train in, use 3x3, but also additional stuff. Even if we approach from that perspective, you're still going to gain mass. You can't separate the two after a certain level. We can talk about what's optimal, what makes more sense. But even something as low as singles can put on mass. Because it's not what you do in one session. It's the accumulation over the weeks, the months, as you build your tonnage. And by the way, the reps matter less than we once thought. Check out Brad Schoenfeld, one of the best hypertrophy researchers. Look at this graph. What does that tell you about doing reps of 5? Or 10 to 12, or 15 to 20? What matters is how close you are to failure. The reps in reserve, in other words. And of course, what you can recover from. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that 3x3 is better than 3x10 for gaining mass. But that you'll separate size and strength from doing that, especially as your numbers climb from, say, intermediate to elite, which can absolutely happen with this approach. Not happening. And in regards to the effectiveness of it, well, I think you kind of know my perspective on it. It works. I've been doing it for years in many of my workout videos. And for the explosive gains, yes, that works because you're raising your absolute strength and therefore a lower percentage. When you do that, it's going to be so light that you're just powering through it. But if you want to maximize your speed training on top of the absolute performance, do speed work. So dynamic effort, dips and pull-ups can absolutely be executed. But truth is, you'll still get a lot more explosive just getting stronger in the high percentages doing body weight training. You're moving through space with additional loads on your body. Like you strip it off, what do you think is going to happen? If I do a pull-up single with 165 pounds, how fast do you think 100 is going to look? Comparatively, it's nothing. If I do a 225 dip, what's 3 plates? Super explosive. So at the end of the day, strength is strength. Hey Alex, I have leg asymmetry to bone, fat, and muscle, and I've reached a point where my left leg is very big and I don't want to get any bigger. I would like to gain some mass in my right leg though. Is this possible? Should I stop training my left leg? How would I incorporate a leg workout for my knees? Great content, keep it up. Thank you. First question I have for you is, what are the measurement differences? Because I've seen guys tell me that, hey, one leg is bigger than the other, or one arm is bigger than the other. And when you ask them, okay, what's the measurements? They usually can't give you an answer. They'll say, oh, well, visually, I can see what's going on here. So sometimes they'll send me a picture. And then when I look at it, I'm like, where? Usually, these guys are examining themselves way too hard to the point where it's such a minute difference. So identify if this seriously is a problem that's hindering, say, your squatting performance. Is it so bad that it's causing you to use Snap City type form and you feel like an injury is awaiting? How much of this is really an impact? And is it true that one of your legs is massive while the other one is small? I have a hard time believing that. Not saying you said this, but I don't think there's as much of an imbalance as you might believe. Now, in terms of how this imbalance developed, there could be some structural abnormalities, like one leg being longer than the other, or even scoliosis, which is distorting your form, or could be the technique utilized on bilateral exercises, like your squats, your leg pressing, your deadlifts, etc. Perhaps your foot width is not equivalent. So I would film yourself and see if there are form implications that are contributing to this imbalance. What I can say in my case is that I've developed muscular imbalances from doing one-arm pull-ups and Jefferson pulls. So staggered positions or doing unilateral work actually made things worse for me. That's because I didn't do an equal amount on the other side. Could you be guilty of that too? I don't know. But if we know that this can happen in reverse, why not flip the script once more? What I mean is, do exclusively training on your weaker leg for a few weeks or months, catch it up. And of course, measure everything. Maybe run a Bulgarian-like program. Let's say your left leg, you're getting 6 reps on a lunge, and your right is only 4. Build your right to either 6 or 8 to 10. Match the performance on that opposite leg. And then when you start doing an equal amount in the same workout, you're already fixed. So that's an underrated strategy that I don't really hear people talking about. I'll hear guys say, okay, do more lunges, but they don't say train exclusively one side for a little bit just to make things catch up. So that's what I might recommend to you. Otherwise, you can still train both sides. In fact, I'm going to tell you that you should still do your bilateral movements, just drop the weight, incorporate proper form. But for the accessories, that's where you up the volume. So instead of 3 sets on left and right leg, do 5 on your weaker one. And that's all I'll say for now. It's probably not as bad as you realize though. If Eddie Hall or Thor do a rack pull above the knee, how much would you reckon it would be? It's hard to say. You have some elite deadlifters who can't do 1,500 pounds on this movement, whereas those who've been training the hand and thigh lift for years can pull this off. Strength is joint angle specific, though strength is also strength. So someone who has a super elite deadlift will obviously be an absolute beast in the rack pull above the knee. And in case of Eddie Hall and Thor, I don't think that's unreasonable whatsoever to assume that they can beat the all-time world record for this exercise, which is, by the way, in competitive terms, 2,000 pounds. So I would personally love to see it done, which seems perfectly reasonable to me. You've seen Mike the Machine Bruce pull 1,500 pounds. I've done over 1,100. Why would Eddie Hall or Thor not be able to do 2,000 pounds? Or at least 1,800? Hey Alex, I've been following your Naturally Enhanced program and I love it. Awesome to hear that. The only thing is I'm unsure how to progress with GPP work. For example, I've been implementing farmer walks as my main source of GPP, but I haven't made any progress. My question is, should I focus on increasing the distance or the weight? Progression's kind of going to occur automatically with the GPP workout, but the main thing is improving your fitness over time. So you don't have to take your farmer walk from say 30 pounds to doing 120s. But if you're fit enough to handle that in a workout, I mean, you can go ahead and do that. But really the whole point of these sessions is to further condition the body. And if using low rest intervals or trying to get in and out of the gym, doing a 15-20 minute session, you're not going to go that heavy to begin with. So maybe doing time or volume is a better idea. Look at some body weight workouts. That counts as GPP, but you're not modifying the variations per se that such that the intensity is that much higher. Look at these high repetition calisthenics routines. You're not doing pseudo planche push-ups in most cases. Max you'll do is say a 40-pound weighted vest or 80, 100 pounds if you're a true beast. But these workouts are not usually the heaviest, with the exception of some movements like sled pulls, wheelbarrow shrugs, and things that you might have seen Louis Simmons talk about. But the general stuff like push-ups, pull-ups, dips, typically higher reps, not an emphasis on heavier weights because it's not an additional weight training session. It's not supposed to impair your recovery or beat you down further. In a way, it's active recovery or just adding on a little bit more stress, but it's not supposed to burden the system is what I'm saying. So for farmer walks, I'd recommend increasing your time as well as reducing the duration that it takes to complete certain distances. And if you're doing something like, I don't know, a 12-minute run, try to shorten your time every single workout. or whenever possible. If you're boxing for 20 minutes, doing 2-3 minute rounds, complete the same session while not being as out of breath or using more force into those punches. Or instead of resting 1 minute in between, you're resting 30 seconds. Or you're doing active rest, like push-ups or jump rope, whatever. I'd rather you up factors that are not weight related if we're talking about strictly GPP type sessions. You're stimulating, not destroying the body. In this way, progressive overload is still being emphasized, but not in your traditional weight training sense. Hi Alex, due to me taking heavy medication for my acne, I take Accutane. I have severe lower back pain, which is a side effect of the drug. I'm also a novice and realize the program is lower back heavy. Is it okay if I don't train my lower back for a while and work around it? How would you go about doing that on a novice program? Are you going to drop the squats and the deadlifts? Or is it better to stop exercise totally until I come off the med? When is that going to happen? I'm a novice, 260 pounds, 6'1", at 17 years old. I really love training. It helps me mentally, like therapy, but I'm also tired of this acne. What would you recommend? P.S. My doctor says it's okay to do exercise that don't cause pain. Much love from Australia, and thanks for helping us out. Well, it's a great pleasure, brother, and thank you for your question. So there's a lot going on here. But what first jumped out to me was the fact that you're 17 years old, 6'1", but you weigh 260. I would say you're overweight, and that given your lifting experience, you're a novice lifter after all, you're starting my program, you probably have a lot of weight to lose. Maybe 180, 200 pounds is what you should be at a lighter body weight. And I would say that if you get down to that point to begin with, there is a possibility that your acne would be dramatically reduced. Because think about this too. If you got to 260 pounds, how much processed food did you eat? What did your diet look like leading up to that point? Obviously, there are certain genetic factors that we could be prone to, and some guys do everything right and they still have acne, but you don't seem to sound like you're fitting that criteria right now, given the fact that there's a weight issue. So I'm not trying to be an here in saying this, but I think you need to get on a plant-based diet for one. Check out Brian Turner. He has some of the worst cases of acne you'll find, and he reversed it with plant-based nutrition. That's the first step. So follow those footsteps in addition to losing a good 60 to 80 pounds. That's a lot of weight to lose. So if you want to do that right off the bat, start slow, maybe 40 pounds. But I strongly believe that would solve most of the skin issues you're experiencing. At the same time, you want to get on a skincare routine, not just using the Accutane. I'm not telling you to drop it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a skincare specialist, but I do have certain knowledge about this topic, and I can provide a general overview of what's going on. You should cleanse your face every morning and night, followed by moisturizing. You can use a lighter serum in the morning, and at nighttime, something a little bit heavier. I personally use a hyaluronic acid and vitamin C serum in the morning and aloe vera gel at nighttime. And it's a concentrated formula specifically meant for moisturizing. And there's other stuff that I do too, which I'll talk about in future videos. So that's really awesome. I'd start with that, in addition to exfoliating once a week. And I'd personally recommend chemical exfoliation in this regard. Or if you want to go super aggressive right off the bat, get something cheap like the St. Ives blackhead remover. So you want to go hard on your skincare program. At the same time, consider getting maybe medicated sunscreen. They do have that available, which is specifically designed to help with acne, but it's a sunscreen at the same time. And since you live in Australia, I would imagine you're getting a lot of exposure. So I think those are the things that need to be addressed. You running a really good skincare program, following the healthiest diet in the world, and also dropping the weight. Now, in regards to training the lower back, given the fact that you're a novice lifter, the weights aren't going to be super heavy right now. You might be squatting 95 pounds. Accutane or not, I don't think the drug would be severe enough for you to have hardcore lower back pain with a weight like that. Maybe if you're doing 225, 315, that could be a possibility. Or if you're 6 months into the system and now you're starting to see the side effects of the drug, maybe that could be a factor. But right now, I think you'd be fine, dude. And I'll put money that I've had many subscribers who ran the system with great success who didn't really talk about having negative strains. Now, I can't confirm this, but I would be curious in my comment section. Like, for those who ran my novice program on Accutane, what'd you notice? Post your feedback in the comment section. So, to me, you're addressing everything holistically. And the months that, first of all, the moment you start eating a plant-based diet, within 2 days, your gut starts to change. After 3 weeks, complete microbiome evolution. And of course, you're not going to be approaching the intermediate stage within 3 weeks. You're still starting off building up your base. So as the weeks and the months go by, your acne is going to be going down, in my opinion. The weight's going to be stripping off, especially now since you could drop a lot more, probably even 2 pounds a week. You can go a bit more aggressive since you're higher body weight. And then the skincare routine on top of that, bro, I think this is going to work. Now, if you're really scared about doing the squats and the deads for now, then my worst case advice would be don't do them and just perform calisthenics instead, or body weight training, or heck, investing in a reverse hyperextension. Put up $500 on it, decompress that spine, rotate the sacrum, build up the lower back like that. Would I have done this back in the day? 100%, man. Even if I was your age, I would have taken my money, instead of buying a new console or a new video game collection, I would have bought a reverse hyper if I was having legit lower back issues. Plus, it would have forced me to be productive and make more money. So I don't see it as a bad thing. But yeah, that would be my complete advice. Keep me updated. I want to hear from you in a couple months from now. Decline bench press or parallel bar dips, which according to you is better for lower chest gains? Your channel is really informative. Thanks, bro. Thank you, brother. If we're talking about biasing the lower chest, biomechanically, I'd say that the weighted dip does a slightly better job. And also, we're getting the weighted stretch overload with maximum range of motion. When you do a decline bench, yeah, you're moving in the correct plane, but we have to admit that it is somewhat of a partial lift, similar to a 1 to 2 board press or doing the arch back bench press. And obviously, we know that's a great chest builder, especially if you pause. So right off the bat, we can say that both these movements do a tremendous job at developing the whole chest. And for the lower chest, there's anecdote, EMG, and biomechanics that we can say, yeah, you're going to get jacked in this regard. So all I will say to this question is do both if you really care. That's what I would do. That's what an optimal program is. Unless you just want to rotate variations of decline benching or weighted dips, like with the rings, chains, grip width, dead dip, slingshot dip, etc. So if you could only pick one, I'd probably lean more in the direction of dips. But as someone who believes in maximized programming, I would never just do one unless I was absolutely forced to. So we already know that both of these are absolutely amazing. Why skip out on any? Heck, you can drop the flat benching completely, just do your decline bench if you really care about this that much. Decline bench, weighted dips, that's a combo. Great one at that. Hey Alex, do you still believe behind the back deads are beneficial for raising the conventional deadlift? Absolutely, as does Louis Simmons. This exercise will develop your leg drive for conventional deadlifts. Obviously, it's not the same movement pattern, but if we're using this as an accessory lift or as a max effort variation, which is all about straining under a heavy load, well, it's still a pull. And strength is strength. You're putting up amazing numbers on the behind the back deads. Your conventional's probably not going to be weak, especially if you're doing a maximized system that has you performing, say, RDLs or good mornings or just a direct emphasis in muscles that need to be developed for conventional pulls. So if we talk about it from an isolation perspective, I wouldn't just do strictly behind the back deadlifts for carryover, nor would I make that the foundation of the system. But would I include it as a part of something that is larger? 100%. You can argue that this is a great deficit deadlift substitute. Or maybe you want to rotate a pull that's not a sumo or a block pull. You don't want to do partials, still full range of motion, but your lower back's a bit achy that day. So I definitely see great merit in this lift. And for me, I probably will start doing conventional deadlifts again, as well as trap bar deadlifts and all the amazing variations you've seen me do in the past. And you better believe it, that behind the backs will be included in my max effort rotation. Hi Alex, do you think you could do sissy squats and glute ham raises for the majority of your quad and hamstring work and then use band good mornings for your lower back and glutes? Honestly, yeah, but a few modifications will be made. So for the sissy squats, not just with your body weight, because that will reach a point where they're too easy. So I would try to load them at some point. And a good method might be wearing a weighted vest. This way you can still do the exact same movement pattern. Could also be using the SSB. This way it doesn't matter that there's a bar on our back, it's not falling off. Progressively overloading your sissy squats will 100% develop the quads. Biomechanically, it has to. The lower leg is bending so much that the quads are being activated to their full capacity. When you do a traditional squat, the glutes and hamstrings contribute massively to the movement. Not saying squats get disengaged, but from a leverage standpoint, the sissy squat puts more of a proportionate load on the quadriceps. So you wouldn't have a problem with that. And as far as glute ham raises are concerned, of course, one of the best movements you could do for your hamstrings. The goal should be to max out the pin heights. So if you're starting off on the lowest position and there's 5 settings, work it up to the top. Then introduce a plate or bands. Alternatively, Nordic leg curls would also get the job done. So for hamstrings and quads, you're good. And then the good morning, as opposed to a conventional deadlift or RDL, that's one of the best things you're ever gonna do for the lower back, glutes, and hamstrings too. So the only thing that I might include on top of this routine for the perfect program is belt squats, which it's not because the sissy squats aren't effective, but just that you can overload a little bit more. You're going to traction out that spine as well. And now you're hitting the maximum volume for pretty much all your muscle groups. You got your traditional squat, one of the best movement patterns around. Your hip hinge with great loading potential, which, by the way, you should do with more than bands. I would actually say a barbell plus bands is superior in this case. And then you got your sissy squats and your glute hams. If we're talking about accessory lifts for the icing on the cake, bro, your legs are going to look out of this world. That I can guarantee. So to me, that's the better program than what you're suggesting. But if you just did sissy, glute ham, good morning, you're still going to be fine. But it's not optimal, in my opinion. All right, final question of the week. Just wanted to see your setup. What devices do you use to edit your videos? It'd be great if you choose my question. Well, I got you, brother. And for anyone who's into video making, this is my setup. The camera that I'm filming with is the Sony a6600, and this is the Sigma f1.4 30mm lens. Sharp as it gives you a nice bokeh effect, especially if I got close like this. Look at the blurry background. Wasn't able to do that with my previous camera, which was the Canon EOS 70D. And before that, I had a Nikon D50-100. So both of those two were okay, but this is by far the best camera I ever had. And I chose this over the A7 III originally because that's around the time that both these two were popular, because they're pretty much using the same sensor. And from a viewing experience, it's the same thing. And there are videos that make these comparisons, which was originally with the A6400, but I chose the A66 because it was the best model that had just come out, which had additional features like image stabilization. So this is not actually a full frame camera, but it gives you that viewing experience, especially since I get access to the best lenses for a price that's not really that expensive. So with my Sigma, I'm good to go, man. I got this with the 16mm and also have some very simple KNF ND filters. That's what I do to get that nice look outside. As far as lighting is concerned, I got a giant Savage light in front of me, which I've been using for years. I used to have 2. And I got some GVM RGB lights. So check this out. If I want to put blue on me, I can do that. And for the setup, I'm not using your traditional 3-point lighting system with the light here, light there, and the one behind with the hair light. I got my main one right in front of me. It's not shifted to the side. I got here for a little bit of casting on the side of my face, but it's not a super strong light. And then I actually got a light right in the back. So check out what happens here. I prefer the back being more lit as opposed to this dark effect you're seeing here. But when you have the regular light on the side, it actually looks kind of decent. So this is how it would appear without the light behind, all right? And I can also change the colors too, which is pretty freaking awesome. Check this out. Now I got green behind me, just spice things up a bit. So these are the GVM RGB lights, like I said, and they're great. They do what I'm looking for. And I actually have a newer attachment on top because I can't look at the LED light straight. It freaking blinds me. I don't know how guys do it. I am incapable. It feels like my eyes are about to explode. I start tearing up in front of the camera. Not possible for me, so I had to cover that up. But that's what it is, man. I really love cameras, and I've been watching a lot of camera channels over many years, and it's something that intrigues me. These days, I look less into it because I kind of got what I want. And actually, this is also my Daddy microphone, just as good as the Rode VideoMic Pro. Some would argue it's even better. And I got a simple mic stand. Some guys like to take it out of the frame, which is typical to have it up here facing down, but I prefer having it closer, especially in this room here. I've done a lot to minimize some of the echo. And for that, I also have acoustic panels, which I can show you. Not the cheap ones I used to have in the past. These are super thick, and there's some good fabric to this. Not to mention the fact that they complement the room quite nicely. So that's what I got for here. I didn't put any on the other side of the wall because I don't want to be too jammed up like that, and I still like a little bounce. And as far as the editing software is concerned, which is what you asked me, Sony Vegas Pro 16. It's not what most people use, but I've been using this software since I was quite young. So it's what I got accustomed to using. It has all the features that I'm looking for. Maybe not as pro compared to other softwares, but it still is on a high level. And for most content creators, it probably is enough. And you can do so much with this, it's unbelievable. So I don't feel the need to upgrade the way I edit my videos. I've gotten pretty efficient at doing it like this. And if I want to make some more, I don't know, Jeff Nipper type videos, I can do that with Vegas. It's obviously going to take a lot more hard work and editing, and I have to acquire more skills in that regard. But it's not impossible to do with this software is what I'm saying. So yeah, that's my filming and editing setup. With that said, we are done this Q&A. If you got more questions, post yours down below, and I'll see you in the next one.